He stood the line.
67 limb suckers.
First time I ever
They
fired
did
a
power
weapon in
snatches
anger.
yesterday.
I didn't even know it was like this.
You'd like those if you tried them.
Or actually, yeah, so.
We're at 18.
I know, I'll never forget that. That was the greatest day ever.
She's not gonna.
We're live.
We're live.
Wow, okay, let me get my agenda up so I know what I'm doing here, folks. All right, I'm gonna call this meeting to order. Please rise in the Pledge of Allegiance. The flag is right behind Mr. Wilcoxon. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Sorry for the delays, folks who are watching from home. Apparently a miscommunication about the fact that we need to, be able to talk to you guys. So here we are, a nice sharp 6:13. Just making sure I get that down. I will be serving as secretary tonight, you guys. So we need to move adoption of the agenda.
So move. Oh, you got it?
Second?
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. All right, we're gonna move right along. Oh, yeah, no, we'll, yeah, that's the
We
next
pick them
one.
both up next meeting. We'll remember.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so the primary purpose of tonight's meeting, well, Mr. Jakes contacted me and said, hey, okay, I think we're ready to talk about athletics, extracurricular activities. And I said, great, I'll call the meeting. He said ASAP. I made it ASAP. All right, so here we are. I don't have much else to frame it up. I don't know who's going to take the lead. Mr. Jakes had requested it, but I know that there were other board members who wanted to talk about it. So I'm going to kind of turn it over. I know we're waiting as well for the high school principal to join us via Google Hangouts. So.
Well, from what I read that they sent us, the ADs, I like the plans. I mean, I think we're ready to do it and get the kids back into the sports and whole 9 yards, so.
But they don't recommend that right now. And so if
everything's
you go back in
dropping.
January and you have 14 days of practice,
Right.
you've got 30 days left of your season. Is it even worth it for us to spend the money on it for the entire season? Or is it just a season loss?
There's no true answer to that.
Yeah, that was my question.
So one of the things that, as Christy pointed out kind of in her email and I had also sent was that we wanted to look at not just sports, we wanted to look at extracurricular activities. We were talking about DECA, we were talking about 4-H clubs or 4-H events, we were talking about robotics clubs. We were talking about all the things that are kind of supplemental programs that happen usually after school hours and extracurricular things for our students to be in. Kristen had met with the entire team yesterday, it looked like, as far as the sponsors for those programs, as well as the ADs, Travis from the middle school, herself, Ms. Brown, I'm assuming Mr. Wilcoxon. You weren't on the list, but I assumed you were there, and kind of came up with a plan. So if we might want to have a short little report from her so that everybody else knows kind of what we reviewed or talked about somewhat.
That'd be fine. If you're cool with it? No, you'll have to
You
find,
can come and have this if you like.
or hey, Kristen, we've got one, looks like we've got one on the edge
It's for so
for
Mr.
the,
Verts you can hear.
it doesn't matter.
You can hear him.
For Mr. Verts, okay.
Mr. Verts, can you hear us?
Testing. We can't see.
Hello?
We're just gonna hear
Oh,
it.
Yes, I can hear you.
Hey, there we go, all right.
I can hear you.
You can, okay.
He won't,
Is this just go to the camera?
yes.
Yeah.
Are you're not streaming the meeting, Ian?
It's not allowing me to for some reason.
Refresh, I think.
Refresh, I think we should be live
Yeah,
now.
someone else had to refresh to get it to work.
Hey, folks, text your friends at home, tell them to refresh their screens.
If you didn't hear that at home, if you are not seeing it, refresh your whatever device.
Actually, you wouldn't know.
I am really up on tech.
Yes, ma'am, Ms. Niemeyer.
It's push a button.
Yesterday, the high school, middle school admin met in the morning the coaches and the sponsors of all the high school, SECC, and middle school, sponsors and coaches to get we wanted to express our concerns and our opinion for them to hear, and then we wanted to get the feedback from them. So yesterday, every organization that I listed, pretty much every organization except for a couple of middle school, Travis, help me out, middle school activities weren't represented.
Yeah, we had a few people that were there, but had to leave before the meeting was over, or weren't able to get there, so.
There were two people who were there, but who had to leave before the meeting's over.
I know to have those additional information.
Now, I did not talk to anybody about robotics because that doesn't fall under my umbrella, and so.
I've talked with Mrs. Peel. She said that they have 4 to 6 students basically in robotics, and that she feels that she can safely accommodate, and she wants to be able to get those children in there as
Yes, we
well,
received
so.
an email.
Yeah, we got
Most
the
of our
email.
activities
We
are
received an
already
email.
meeting virtually, so they felt that they wanted to support the administration's decision not to return to in-person activities until we were back in the classroom. Many of them voiced that opinion at the meeting yesterday. We did have 4 high school coaches express that they were ready to get back to play, whether we were in class or not. So that was kind of the synopsis of what we had discussed yesterday with coaches and sponsors.
Questions, comments, ideas?
Those 4 groups were men's and women's basketball, wrestling, and
The middle school basketball, wasn't it?
High school wise, it was girls and boys basketball,
Oh, cheer.
wrestling, middle school wrestling, and dance.
Or dance?
And
Dance,
archery,
that
don't
was
forget
on.
archery.
Archery
Don't
was
you feel
the
that?
one activity, yeah.
So, middle school basketball is done virtually in December always, right?
Yeah.
So it's a season lost, no matter what, right?
What do you mean, when you say season loss?
Well, even if we would go back today, we don't have 14 days left of school to get practices in and complete so they can participate.
They do not have to.
Yeah, they don't have to get 14.
So we don't, but safety-wise, is it safe to put them right back out and go?
Some of them, no.
And that's gonna have to be a call that if that's a version we get to whenever we cross it, they have to be really careful about it. So, yeah, technically our regularly scheduled season will be over next Friday. The last wrestling meet would be Monday. We've thrown around the possibility of extending our season into January for basketball if we needed. And that, you'll see in that survey that I sent you guys, our coaches, 100% were willing to do that if it was deemed safe. I'd have to try to pick up games from some of the schools that still go into January, which,
I was gonna say, would you have a lot of schools to pull from, for lack of a better term?
I
schedule.
made a list the other day, and like it's the entire MRBC conference,
Mhm.
it's Warsaw, it's potentially the K-Senior conference teams. We'd be restricted to the timeline of when we started our season and when our season, we have a limit on how long our season would go. So we'd be restricted to the first 3 weeks of January. But, so, in theory, I don't know if I'd say, if we're trying to finish it all before December and say that's the cutoff point, then
Lost. Yeah, okay.
Other referees,
They're working.
officials.
Kristen's nodding, so we can
They're
pull
working.
submissions,
They're
once we
working.
can get some reps, okay.
One of the questions that I have is why, when we're talking about activities in athletics, we're talking about much smaller groups. And I have a question as to why these districts in our county that are dealing with the same numbers we are finding a way to do it with the same numbers. There's 15 or 16 on a basketball team, everywhere you go. How are they finding a way to do it safely? And I'm going to say they're doing it safely because they've been playing since Thanksgiving, and our community numbers have gone down an average of 4 per day since November 30th. So they're doing it safely. They've been playing since then. They had tournaments. They attended tournaments. They brought all these people into our community. How are they doing it safely? And we haven't figured out how to do that.
Good question.
Or do we not have the resources? Like, what is it that we are missing that they've got if it's something like that.
I don't believe that there's anything that some other district has that we necessarily don't have. I think the barrier that we've been up against for the most of the time is the fact that we weren't in seat. And we first went out of seat, and we said, like, the ADs and the principals have told us if we weren't in school, then they didn't want to be in practice. So when we stopped 2 weeks ago, whatever it was, of going to class, then we stopped practice and everything at that time. These other schools have been pushing through that time, and they've already been pushing through practice. As far as looking at, sanitation schedules or other things like that, all the things that I saw look reasonable and acceptable in the plans that we had. Those are the things that probably every other school is doing. You can wipe a basketball down, you can scrub the floor. It's gonna be different in winter sports than it ever was in other sports because we're inside. There's only so much gym space, there's only so much air, those types of things. On a football field, it's a lot of contact, but your breath does kind of dissipate a little bit differently than it does inside a gym. So I don't see that there are extreme barriers to other districts versus ours. I think a lot of it just has to do with being in seat or not. And the reason that we aren't even in seat now possibly could be looked at due to the barriers that we had within districts, such as food service or looking at the timing of coming back, where we said it's not worth coming back for 7 days after we could get enough food and stuff here. Would we have looked at saying we can be back in seat yesterday when we talked on Friday, or today if we were looking at 72 hours, however we were going to look at? And I think that we were probably all leaning towards saying that, like we leaned towards saying January 4th, we want to be back in seat. So I think if we could have overcome some of those other barriers that stopped us from being able to provide meals to our children, adequate time, looking at the timelines that we had left in the semesters, I think we probably already would have been here. So, in my opinion,
Yeah,
and what I
Makes
would have
sense.
supported last week.
makes sense.
Do teams usually practice over like
Oh,
your
yeah.
Christmas break?
Yes, yes.
Probably technically Beaker probably hasn't because Beaker's season usually ended before the break
Yeah, it's
started.
usually over by then.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But normally
Your
high
high
school
school, yes.
teams would, like FBLA and DECA, would they do anything over? No.
They
No.
might have an activity that they have to do, like, maybe they're going Christmas caroling, or they're baking
Sure.
cookies for nursing homes, just a simple activity.
I couldn't tell which one of you two were talking.
Do we have,
That's fine, I'm sorry, I was looking at her and then,
That's my fault.
no, it's okay.
do we have is the DECA organization working the holiday project this week?
No, they're only doing adults.
DECA's only doing
We actually
adults.
asked about
I saw a picture of our students at the holiday project today, so I just wondered if they were volunteering or if that was a
That's not
student.
as an
Okay, awesome.
organization, because we were told that they weren't
Okay.
supposed to gather and go. So
Okay,
if
awesome.
they did it on their own.
That, which is
They were
fantastic.
volunteering.
And
Thank you
so
for
we
volunteering
did have-
students.
Yeah.
we did have, I sent some office staff because normally we help run that event. And so I sent my office staff today.
Okay,
Sorry, I sent my office staff today to help out with that
Yeah.
because I felt that we needed to be in presence.
yeah, okay, good. I'm glad the kids still went. I'm glad the kids still went.
So, and then I think I read speech they're all virtual.
Virtual,
anyway.
yes.
Right, okay,
Mhm.
so.
And debate.
Both of those coaches, actually, the 3 speech coaches said that they would be willing to take a COVID test before state activities and all that if they do go back to in-person activities.
Okay.
I also talked to Mr. Layton, who is the Fine Arts Chair, I believe, if I say that title correctly for that. As far as band activities go, choir, those things, they're doing a lot virtually, he said. They're already having virtual practices with their students. They're assigning things for them to be able to do. He didn't feel that necessarily coming back in was necessary for their program at the place that they're in. District choir, all those things are going to be going on later in the spring, and he didn't feel that practices or things need to occur with that. He also shared that Mrs. Tottingham and him have also talked about plays, things like that, and looking to push those things back into the spring and already accounting for the fact that we weren't going to be in school at this time. So some of those programs were going to be occurring later on. They were looking at creative practice schedules, Zoom practice schedules, possibly different things like that if they had to remain virtual. So he had a lot of information for me and seemed like they had done a lot of planning on the situation and planning to be remote. He said, band had its performances. They did have one large performance in the fall, and that it was kind of a little bit of a lull for them between they actually geared up for districts.
It seems like fine arts has been doing like a lot for students, and so, kudos.
I've got a violin player in my house, I've been doing quite a bit.
So HOSA, Skills USA, Ed Rising, Student Council, and debate, those, debate's on here twice. Those would or would not do, have organized activities when school's out of session for the holidays.
Student council would probably have organized activities. I don't know for sure. She said she has
This
30
is all the
plus
same.
members.
This is
so
the-
that's
this is
why
what she's talking
that was the only one.
30-plus members in what?
Student council. And they would probably have activities during Christmas. if
They have that many in student council? Okay. Okay.
I can't speak for the other.
I received an email from her, though. I don't know if you all got it. But she'd have 30-plus in a room, and she didn't feel that that was a wise thing to do because there were so many kids. So that was out. I'm going to say that this is going to be one of the toughest decisions because we're all put in a very difficult position here because we're in phase 4 due to distant learning. And Mr. Verts has made it very clear that being in phase 4 and at distant learning, he doesn't support having sports if we can't have our students in the classroom in seat. I want to say that I back his decision as an administrator, but I'm also in a conflicting position here tonight because if we would have made a decision with 5 COVID cases in our school and 30 being quarantined, I do not believe we'd be in phase 4 in a district if we're looking at district numbers, and that's how we've been pushing the school district to start doing because that's what everybody's doing around us and they're in class. With that being said, because we did not make that decision in time, our food service was not able to order the food, so therefore we did not have it for our kids, and we only have 2 weeks before Christmas break. That's why this decision is very difficult, because I believe that the students want their activities. Some of them need their activities to help push them to do their schoolwork. And other kids have a good foundation where they know that they need to do their schoolwork, no matter what, if they're playing sports or not, or in an activity. They know they need to keep their grades up. But other kids, that may be the only thing that's driving them to do their work. So I just want to make it very clear, no matter what is decided here tonight, it is not taken lightly, and there are a lot of kids involved. And I want to say that I respect administration. I want to back and support their decision, but at the same time, I feel like there was some failure that happened last week where the decision wasn't made in time for us to solidly say that we do or don't support that. So I just want to make sure that's very clear tonight, that no matter which way this goes, it is a difficult decision.
And I agree with Ms. Varner. The other thing, I've read a lot in the community about saying that we're calling a meeting to have sports over education. That is not the idea at all. You know, student success in the classroom has always been something over student success out on a field somewhere else. You know, I want our students to be successful wherever they would be. This is a situation, like she said, where we may have not got everything in place. We possibly could be in school right now. And as she said, I want to be able to support our administrators and listen to them. I've listened to Ms. Brown, Ian, Brian, Kristen, the whole group, Travis as well, tell us, like I said before, that if we're not in seat, we shouldn't be. But I think that we could be in seat right now. There's also some concerns with me on transportation. I talked to Mr. Thompson a little bit on the way in here. It seems that there was some failings possibly in the fall, possibly with proctoring some of the athletes, making sure that they were adhering by rules. And if we do make a decision to do something like that, the safety of our drivers, the other people who are supplementally going to be asked to step up and drive some of these kids, that the coaches are going to have to say, we wanted this. They're going to have to hold their players accountable. You know, you've got to wear a mask on the bus. You're going to have to follow the rules that are going on. If you're not following the sanitation and safety rules, then they're going to have to look at those kids and tell them, hey, you know, you're going to have to sit out a game. You're going to have to miss a practice. You're going to have to do something. There has to be some consequences for people. As we're going out on a limb for safety and on their sake, then they're going to have to meet us halfway and be able to support the other people in our district as well that are also doing those things.
Our coaches
What
have to
about-
be sure to speak up.
What about waivers for parents to be able to take their kids to and from the athletic events? That way there's less. And it might be that we have none that need transportation.
Is there anything against parents
No.
going to?
Nope.
It's in the handbook, it just has to be approved by
Okay.
They would still go through all the same safety protocols, temperatures being taken and those kind of things. But if we had a waiver, then the kids might not need they might not need a bus.
I just don't know the legality if you were given I don't know.
We would just have to, yeah.
Legality is if they were home.
It may be, I don't know.
Yeah. You mean like if I sign off to drive a group of kids up instead
Drive
of
your
just my
child.
own child?
You could drive, a parent could give you permission to take whoever you wanted on a waiver.
We're the only parent.
Right.
Right,
But-
the
but
parent
if
would
a
have to
child-
give permission to
right.
get their child there.
I know it's kind of the coach's discretion on the way home.
Yeah, we still.
From the
All of
games.
them have said that due to the circumstances that we are in right now, that they are willing, they usually come home as a team, they go, and they've all waived that if the parents are there. But the only problem is if we go to someplace that has no spectators, then the parents won't be there. So are the parents just gonna hang out in town for
Probably.
3 hours?
Probably.
Some of them will.
Mr. Verts, I would like to hear from you at this time. I'd like to get some of your thoughts.
Ian, did you hear that?
Mr. Verts?
He's unmuting
No,
He's
himself.
on
He can
mute.
see
There
us.
he goes.
Okay,
He's
great.
talking.
Go, Ian.
Okay, well, from what I haven't been able to hear conversations very well. I've heard, I know that, I do appreciate the things that you, said, Chrissy, in regards to, wanting to support the administration and their decisions. There is no right or wrong decision, here.
Ian, stop. Ian, hold on. Let me tell them what you just said.
Yeah, we can't hear you, Aaron.
He
Ian.
appreciated your comments, Mrs. Varner, that you're supporting them and that he's agreeing with you that there's no right decision right now. Never done this before. We're gonna do the best we can. Okay,
Okay,
Ian,
thank
keep going.
I mean, my conversation is the same as the safety and the health of all is our top priority in any decision that's made at Marshall High School and I believe at Marshall Public School. So I think we're all striving for the same goal, which is to get our kids back to school, get our kids back in their activities. And the only thing is that's the burden, or I guess between making that happen is an understanding that we can do so safely. The administration and our teachers and our students and our community members and our families were told that it was not safe to be in school, and therefore we were going home because it wasn't safe to be there. And we trust those decisions and the thoughts that were put behind those, the many man hours it took those individuals put time into that, making those decisions. And I want to respect those decisions because they're not made easy. And if something's changed in regards to now that we feel that it is safe to go to school, then we definitely want to proceed immediately. Our people want to be at work with students. We just want to make sure that we can do that safely.
So Ann, I have a question for you. Mr. Verts, I'm sorry. So based on the numbers, knowing that the district had 5 cases last week, this is as of the last board meeting, and 30 quarantine cases in our district. Based on those numbers and the fact that no decision was made in a timely fashion, we may, or based on administration making that decision, may or may not be in school or at distant learning. But knowing those numbers, do you think that your students are safe to go back to school, even though we're not in school and we're still at distance? Just your opinion tonight, do you think, based on those numbers, that you're safe?
Well, I respect the question. I respect what you're saying. All those numbers sound great. The reason why we looked at a hybrid schedule, I've had a lot of questions about the hybrid schedule, the school days. All of those things were put in place in order to keep school open and keep our kids coming, albeit fewer in-person hours, but to sustain, to continue, and to be able to work until the very end of the semester. Now, the biggest issue is the position that we're in regards to administration
Sure, my apologies. So Dr. Mayer should have made a decision last week and, by a certain time in order for the food truck to come after she had discussed the meeting with the Return to Learn committee. And instead, she wanted to bring it back to the board to discuss, which was after that deadline, which that's when we had a discussion at the board meeting. And of course, we weren't able to order a food truck the next day. A decision was made to stay at distant until after the holidays.
The committee also wasn't going to meet until 3:30 on Thursday. The food order had to be made prior to 4 o'clock on Thursday. So somebody would have had to probably been working on that order by noon on Thursday by the amount of food and products that we need and item listings beforehand. So even by the time the Return to Learning Committee met, there was still no time to meet that deadline for that week, just to clarify.
Can I address that, the food thing?
Microphone check.
Because
It's coming out of it. Excuse me. So, I hear the food argument being, or not, I don't say it's an argument, the food issue being brought up, and it's a legit issue. But as someone who was on the Return to Learn committee, along with some of the people, right here in front of us, I don't feel like that was the sole determinant
No.
in why we didn't come back to school.
No.
Because Dr. Mayer had asked all of us on the committee for our opinions 3 days before anybody knew about the food issue. And the overwhelming majority from all the people who I had seen respond was, the numbers are too high. It's not safe. The cases are too high. I didn't hear from every single person in that email thread, but all of them that I saw, with the exception of maybe one who was holding out opinion, I mean.
It was about 7 out of 11 of the committee that responded
Yeah, so-
totally to us, yes.
I don't want to discount that because it's obviously a part of the factor. It just kind of took the decision and made it more of a no-brainer. I'm of the opinion, and I could be wrong, that the Return to Learn Committee would have recommended that we don't come back to January regardless of if the food issue came up or not, because many of us had already expressed that opinion 3 days before we even knew about the food issue even coming into the equation. I just want to throw that out there.
That is
Thank you.
very true.
Cool. And those are based off of county numbers that the Return to Learn was looking at and not the
We weren't
district
looking at
numbers.
any numbers. I mean, it was just what people had seen on their own. We didn't discuss any numbers out loud or any of that. It was
That
just
was
what people
based
had
off-
determined on their own.
And that was also based on the formulas that we were currently still had in the plan.
I was going to say, I thought that a lot of the discussion was, and the reason that this is going to sound crazy, the reason that this decision was even seemingly kicked down to the, I'm going to take a step back even further. It doesn't really make sense for that decision to have been made by the working group.
Correct.
We needed to just have followed the plan, but the reason that it was being discussed in the working group, but the reason that it would have made sense for it to be discussed in the working group was that you were talking about, at the time, shifting how we are, like which numbers we're looking at. Are we looking more at like a district focus, or are we keeping with the community focus? And in the interim, right, because it takes a little bit of time to come up with a formula that works, that is accurate, that's going to be useful for us. It's not just a one-size-fits-all sort of thing. In the interim, then, the question seems to have arisen, is it safe for us to come back? And knowing what, no, that's not it? This is my surmise, so please enlighten me,
That's
Mr.
always a
Reed.
question. I don't think that's a new question that's popped up.
No, it's certainly not a new question, but the question for the working group seemed to be the question of which model are we working with?
Yeah.
And
Okay, well then please enlighten me and grab the microphone,
I have no idea what model we're working from.
because then I don't understand
Do
why
you have
that
the
question was
current
kicked
numbers?
down to
I
the
do.
working group.
Honestly,
I
question.
assumed that it was part of the plan. And I don't know that we need to do a lot of excavation of this, but for what it's worth, please, I'd like to know.
So, I don't feel like the question had been framed to us on the committee, hey, we're looking at new models, give us your opinion
okay.
in the interim. The question was framed to us, the big question is coming up when we're coming back to school, I would like your opinion and your feedback.
Oh, okay.
I don't, the whole idea of changing the NCMC model, abandoning it, adding to it, improving it, throwing it in the trash can, that hadn't been brought to us. We were asked for our feedback and our opinion prior to the meeting.
Okay. So were you, and so just speaking for yourself, because you can't really speak for anybody else, right? Were you basing your input, and it doesn't matter which way you answered that question, right?
Sure.
But were you basing that on, okay, well, this is what the plan says, and I'm following what we had already said we would do with the plan. The community numbers are X. X falls into phase 4, therefore we should stay out of school.
100%.
Yeah, okay.
I calculated it, and it was 20, 21, somewhere in there.
So what are the other schools in the county using that?
Well.
They have disbanded any real number system.
They're not.
It is
That's kind
it
of
is
what I thought about
arbitrary.
last week.
There isn't anything that moves most of them to phases. Travis, if I'm correct, we are the only conference school that is still holding on to what everyone decided in the conference as the conference guide.
Correct.
Yeah, and so, I wasn't obviously part of any of that decision to join it or whatever, but
Right.
That's my understanding. And so it does make it tough when we feel like we're the last remaining holding on to something that everyone else has let go of. But,
I think that come up last meeting.
It did.
and
and,
I didn't get a good
that's
answer.
another argument for another day, but that's,
Everyone else, and from the couple of places I've contacted, they could not remain in seat by following the guidelines that everybody in the conference agreed to.
And they chose to remain in seat rather than stay with the
There-
plan.
Yes.
Yeah,
What
some
they-
are, yeah.
Yes.
And they completely wiped that off, I mean, you can't find.
It doesn't show up on our
reference to
websites
those
anymore.
numbers
It-
Anywhere.
Yes,
Plan was
So,
created for
except
fall
the North.
activities.
right.
We got together, at the beginning of November, it was probably in October, actually, we all met. And we were told that our superintendents had met numerous times, and that during the fall, they had not followed the plan, some of the schools, and so they did not want to create one for this winter one. So we were tasked with creating a spectator guideline, and that was all.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the original table was from September 8th or something like that, I believe, the first part of September.
I remember that one.
which
And,
was-
yeah, that's
which was
been
fall
mentioned in this,
season,
in this
yes.
quorum. So there's no actual NCMC guidance for winter sports.
The
Other-
reason
other than
we
spectator
kind of-
guidelines.
The way that we understood
That-
it was
yeah, that we
we're
wrote
so
here.
geographically separated that they wanted the local health department to make the decision. Because none of us were in the same county.
Well, clearly they don't care if people play or not, because people all over our county are playing. So Harry, you asked about the numbers, I'll say them again.
Yes, I
On the
did.
30th of November, our number was 20.07. Now Travis, I'm only giving you this number based on how Dr. Mayer told me to figure it. I am not a mathematician, and I do not figure it the way you do. I'm not multiplying the total by the population by 100,000, or whatever you do, dividing and subtracting. I'm simply adding and dividing. Today, we had 7 positives, 224 total in 14 days, so 16 is our number. So we've gone down by 4 in those, since the 30th. If we're calculating just in district, we have 10 at this minute,
Wait, quarantines or positives?
positives.
Gotcha.
That's not true. We have 10 as of Tuesday.
So, Kelly, there's 3 at the Career Center, right? We have 3 positives there?
I have 1 positive and 2 that were on the 72-hour waiting for
Okay.
results.
Are
I
any-
don't know this week, I'm sorry. because
Are any of those, no, you're fine. Are any of those part of the small groups that are actually in class there?
They're the adult nursing program that are there 4 days a week.
Okay.
Yes.
But
But
that's
they're
a pay-
isolated to their groups except in the hallway.
Okay, and that's a paid tuition?
That's a paid
Okay.
tuition,
Okay,
yes.
so that,
And we were actually looking, if the other 2 would have come down positive, we were looking at separating groups
Splitting
and
them up.
making small, since nobody else is in the building, we could make it smaller groups.
Okay, so
Be
say
nice
that
if-
to me again, Callie, because that, it tells me here that you have 3 positives.
Unless they got results back, that I didn't get it.
Well, this would have been
I didn't get it
Tuesday.
yesterday.
This would have been a week ago today. I mean, this would have been December 4th.
No, I had 1 positive, now, this is just the adult nursing because the rest of
Yeah.
the students are reported at
As of
35
Friday.
schools.
As of Friday.
1 positive, 2 that were awaiting tests.
okay, so maybe they were
They may have come
Put
back
down as
positive. I
positive.
have not been told, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I just, if these numbers were less, I wanted to make sure I noted it, or higher.
Yes.
So maybe 8 rather than 10, we don't know. And 30 quarantined. And it looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 15, 16, 19. 20 of those are kiddos. 23 of those participate in one or more of the buildings. Very isolated. I mean, like,
Hey, Ellen,
yes, ma'am.
I think one thing too, phase 4 states that it's off of, phase 4 states that it's off of community spread. I know you're looking at student numbers.
Mhm.
And I think just trying to keep a level head about how we make decisions. I think we need to evaluate the current plan because from what I'm hearing, it's not what we thought it would be whenever it was voted upon that, yes, this is the plan that we want to use. I think it's okay to say that the plan that we thought was going to work isn't working out. But I want to make it clear that all of our coaches at Beaker, if this is about activities or sports, say that according to the plan, they don't think it's right to participate right now. But if we need to look at a new plan,
Right.
I want to say, I want to be a part of that plan.
Yeah.
It's really hard.
Absolutely.
That's what I said the other night.
Well, it's really hard to sit at home, and I'm just being frank here. It's hard to sit at home whenever decisions are being talked about that affect all of my staff members, and then in turn those students. And I am the leader of that building, and I don't get to be a part of it.
Which, for the record, Friday night, I flat out said that. The principals have to be a part of this plan. They're directing it. How can we have a plan that you aren't in charge of and make you direct it?
So I'm just saying that from a point of, I tried my very best to do what's best for our staff at Beaker and also for those kids. And I agree that whatever decision is made, it's not going to be an easy one. And sometimes the right decision is not the easiest one. And I feel like when you ask if we should have sports, the reason why our recommendation was no is because I think we do need to look at how we can get kids back in school, because whether it's in small groups or, you know, if we do need to look at another solution as to follow what the high school does with A B Day, we can do that. But I think we need to do it in a more collaborative, unified effort. So just coming from a building leader, that is something that I am looking for.
Well, I think you need to tailor that to your building, because like you said, that's your building. You're the manager of that building.
And I can absolutely do that, but I'm just gonna say, but whenever you guys are talking about going 5 days a week, and then you're talking about A to B day, and then you're talking about block scheduling, you guys are putting things out there that I haven't had the opportunity to work with my leadership team to put into place.
But you have to understand that this is the only platform and only place that we get to communicate about anything.
Sure, I understand.
And so when we're mentioning things, it might not be the gospel. We have to be able to say, how do we feel about 1 day? How do we feel about 5 days? Otherwise, I never get to share that with my team.
Yeah, we can't do.
And I can't come to we can't have an administrative meeting about these kind of things.
But I think you said it right there. Those are decisions that need to be at the administrative level.
But we have to direct that as our team we have to direct our leadership, your leadership.
I think I'm getting lost as to, so Paula, tell me what solution tell me what it is you're asking for? Like, what is it tell me what you want.
I want to be a part of what.
Of reimagining the plan?
Wow.
Yes.
Okay, well, but,
That'll eventually happen, but I'm saying when you guys throw things out there, it creates panic, and I know that's not intentional. Like you said, this is what your.
We just have to
we-
talk.
in
to
this
them.
context, what are you talking about with throwing things out there?
When you talk about, in general, A day, B day, block schedule, and I can only talk to Beaker.
But that was like the previous meeting, right?
Right.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm still trying to wrap my
Sorry
mind
about
around it.
What I'm hearing is, we need to collaborate on a better plan.
I've
Okay,
never,
I think that's where I was going with, I thought that's what the working group was already doing.
I've never,
It is, but
She's
what
asking to be a
point.
part of
she's
that
saying
group.
is that,
Okay.
like her and
Okay.
Ian, due to the fact that they have roughly 2/3 of the district between their two buildings, need to be more intricately involved in the group so that they can direct traffic a little bit better and not respond to rules that you don't have part in helping make.
it was about
roughly.
3 or 4 meetings ago that I argued very strongly that this ought to be a building-by-building
Yeah.
thing.
And we,
Everything doesn't apply.
well, it had been, the R2L has different pieces for different buildings.
Okay, but
So,
I'm getting.
Paula, at this,
Yeah, I know.
at this point, when, after Friday, after Thursday, after Friday, now we're to, what day is it, Tuesday?
Tuesday.
We're pushing to a revision in the plan when it comes to numbers. And the reason that we're doing that and we're looking at that is because there's some conversation with other districts that they do not feel that the populations that are confined in nursing homes and things like that should be calculated in the district's number. So therefore, Brian and Dr. Mayer, Travis and Mr. Patrick have been, I guess, generously offering their time to pick out, I don't know how in the world you do that, I don't know how you figured out, I don't even, honestly, Travis, this is no disrespect for you, I don't even know why we really ask you and Mr. Patrick to do that, because we're asking you to do something that you clearly don't agree with, and then two, we're asking you to make it, set a number for a bunch of people that are gonna then eventually say, well, you did this, Travis, you're the reason that we have this number. I think it's a very hard task. I think we've tasked you with a big job, that there is no right answer, and I'm sorry kind of that we did that. I don't know that there's a right answer for that. But here's where we are, this fork in the road, right? And we've got to make a decision based on that, and there are many of us that, I mean, I do believe that Friday night, I agree with Brian, that we would have voted to be in school based on the county numbers, whether they were, because we had communication with the county and we knew exactly how many people of the positives were in nursing homes, and where we knew, we had broke down some numbers so we knew exactly where they were, and we knew that they were not directly affecting this district.
Yeah,
Fair
we
or
were-
not,
Yeah, we
right?
were very close.
We were very close, and so.
I just don't know how I would.
And so now going forward, knowing that those numbers are going to shift, are those the things too that you want to be a part of?
Well, I'm just saying that, like, whether it's admin or the returning to learning committee, which I'm not on, you ask for recommendations, but then they seem to get overturned.
Which,
That's-
tell me which one, like
Well,
what?
I'm just saying, for instance, Travis just sat here and said that the return to learn committee was in favor of not returning to school. And Ellen just said that
Oh.
probably the other night you all would have voted to.
It's based on the numbers. My point is, though, it was based on the numbers of the community spread. And once we were able to pull it down from those other districts and realize that those numbers are not affecting this district, that's when we started having some different conversation based on what other schools were doing. I don't disagree with you. I think that return to learn committee is here for recommendations, but there has never been a time that this group has said, and while I'm thinking about it, this group did not bring up the fact that Beaker was going to change their schedule, actually. It was brought to this committee, it was brought to this board that you had been asked and basically told that you had to change your schedule. So that's a discussion for another day, but I don't want you to think that we brought that up as a change to you. That is not what happened.
Well, and I think that right now what we're hearing is that we like this plan, like we
Yeah.
like both these plans that we
Yeah.
got from you guys, the athletics and activities things. And I don't think you're gonna hear, I mean, I think you're hearing from us that we were like, we really wish we could put students right back into activities and athletics right now. We wish this pandemic weren't here, right? But I think we're all saying, as just exactly what Christy said, and what I'm hearing, and Ellen, we support the admin, and we want to support the administration, and so this looks like a good plan, and it looks like it'll be great to implement when we get back in the classroom.
I mean, a lot on that plan are,
I don't agree.
I'm not gonna say anything bad about anything that they wrote down on there, because you're right, a lot of the stuff on there are great mitigation factors, they're great ideas. My only hesitation is a lot that's on there, and those are high school only, so that had nothing to do with Beaker people, 0%. And so maybe I'm not the wrong person to talk about this, because it's not my people. But just as an AD, a lot of the stuff that's on there are things we were already doing.
Yeah.
And so what I'm trying to say is, we were gonna do that anyway, in phase 2, phase 3, phase 4, whether we were letting no fans, 100% of fans, 0% of fans, 50% of fans, whatever. And so, the hard point for me, once again, it's not my people, and I don't mean any disrespect to the people who put that together, because they put a lot of time into it, and there's a lot of good things on there. How is the things on there enough to justify going back to activities whenever the situation in our community is where it is now compared to where it was in August? Because a lot of those things we would have been doing in August whenever we had 70 active cases or 50 active cases. And now when we've got had upwards of 200, 100 and some, and now down to whatever number we're at, that's a hard line to draw and say, have we added enough extra precautions if the situation is much different than it was when we started, or even in the spring?
Sure, pretty
We didn't
well.
put together a plan for spring activities when everything got shut down.
We didn't have them, we stopped them.
We were,
And that's my point.
But it was a statewide shutdown. We're not, it was a government shutdown. We're not in a government shutdown.
we were more ignorant in August. We were really ignorant in March. We were still ignorant in August, but we knew a lot more. And we know a lot more now. There are a lot of facts out there that we did not have in March, that we did not have in August, but that we do have now. But of course, we get contradictions with them. Yeah, I suppose it's just like everything else, you just reach out and grab the one that you want. But I've learned more about this thing than I ever wanted to learn.
So when it comes to, like, looking at this list of yes and no's, the ones that will do things over Christmas versus the ones that aren't, I've taken those out. And so then the vote becomes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to 3. Yes versus no. Because I've been told that debate, choir, band, orchestra, I don't know about FFA, would they do anything over Christmas break? Okay, so I left them on. FBLA, DECA, HOSA, Skills USA, Ed Rising, and then we said yes for Student Council. So I have 4 no's and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 yes for, if we take out the things that would not happen over Christmas break, like the people that would not have practices or activities over Christmas break. I mean, you need to consider that, like, just giving this as an example, talking about practicing over Christmas break, there was a time that our athletes actually played
Tournaments.
over, yeah, we played the 29th and 30th of December.
Big tournaments.
They have games scheduled for those days.
Well,
So,
we're not dictating the kids, we could say, yeah, you can come back, but if they don't feel safe, we're not gonna say, you have to be there.
no, can they
So that's
opt in and
their
out?
choice.
Why not?
I was
So I
gonna-
fully
that was
agree
where I
with
was
the
going.
coaches, let's put them back into practice.
Participation in any sport is always voluntary.
Right.
You
right.
know, there may be peer pressure, there may be parent pressure, there may be internal pressures, but safety of a family or a unit or an individual as they see fit is still the individual's choice to participate.
And then have we,
And we're stalling them, keeping them from practice.
that, and have we already paid salaries for these things to happen?
Sure.
Kristen, this is a personal thing here. I would probably not have stayed in high school had it not been for sports. Are we losing kids? Has anybody been
That
looking?
would be a question for the coaches, because they're the ones that are in contact with this daily.
I had a coach call me
I know
last
in-
week about eligibility
I know
hearing.
in football season that Coach Hughes came and talked about that specifically about kids that weren't getting online, weren't motivated, those kind of things because of participation
Yeah.
and not being able to participate.
I would have been,
I think that there is a small subset of those. We received an email or two, actually, all as a board about, from a particular parent who talked about their child and, you know, that they've lost a little bit of drive in their way because they can't compete or go to things that really mean something to them. You know, regardless of what gets you the grade, sometimes the motivation is the extracurricular part of it.
It always was
Keeping my
for me.
grades up because I can't play if I've got 2 Fs, so I gotta make sure I get them. Now, if I can't play, what does it matter if I keep my grades up? That is somewhat of a mentality of some, you know.
That worries me a little bit, because the kids we're losing are, well, the kids that need our help, or the kids that we're losing,
Maybe
and
more
that bothers me.
Well, so,
Is
for
this
me,
an action item? Do you know?
No, it's not an
for,
action item.
for me, like the athletic and activity conversation is gonna be louder. We don't, as a whole, we don't have a big concern about the education side of it. We know you guys are teaching our kids. We know that. So the talk about athletics is going to sound louder because it's going to happen more often. But
That's a good point.
if semester ends on the 18th, would it be dangerous of us to ask that those teams that do have activities over Christmas break be allowed to practice?
And then participate when?
And then participate once
When
second
it's
semester
ti-
begins?
Oh.
I mean, they may have to lose those 2 games in
Well, they're
late
miss-
They won't
December.
lose any games
Okay.
unless I cannot get them rescheduled.
Let's get them
Okay.
going.
That might work. That might work.
I mean, you're,
We haven't discussed it, I'm
Sure.
not opposed to it, but it's not something that, it was brought up to me yesterday, and I really have had a lot of other stuff going on with me being out of the building, trying to do that side too. No offense, Ian, but you can have your job back. But, so that conversation hasn't been had.
and,
I mean,
and,
it's an option.
and I'm only asking because, as much as I don't like the plan, we still have it. And we're still bound to it right now. We need to follow it, the plan as is written. So
You're talking about the
But we-
phase 4 thing, yeah.
the,
But the phase 4 was rewritten since we
Yes.
went to distance learning, whether we like it or not. The night we went distance learning, it did not say anything about activities or athletics. It said no fans.
All right.
And now
I'm
it
sorry,
has been
Matt, I didn't
rewritten,
interrupt you.
no.
it has been rewritten to say no activities and athletics. I don't know when or who or how, but that's true. So,
Well, but I think
We
that was
need-
always part of it, Ellen. I always remember seeing it. And Ian has been very consistent with his.
I'm just telling you what was in the plan.
Yeah, with his thoughts.
I
He-
found it, we found it, group found it.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know if Ian can even hear me or not. I don't know what he would think
Not
about
with
that.
your mic up there.
Sorry, Matt.
Chrissy tried to tell you. He couldn't hear anything you said.
His request was, or his thought was that if second semester ends on the 18th, could we allow, I think Ellen has it at about 6 activities that would have activities over the holiday or the winter break, that if they could practice then and resume competition in sports then once we came back in January 4th. Am I correct, Matt?
Yeah, it's pretty close.
The gist of it.
Basically, second semester would be over,
Start-
deep learning and those.
start practice when?
break Are kind of the break that we're not really doing.
But why, does COVID stop then? Does our risk change that day, or can they start?
Hold on, Ian, hold on.
Hold on just a minute, Ian, go again now.
I said I'm in support of returning when it's safe to do so as soon as possible. So
Yeah, he's ready.
if what I'm hearing is that it is safe to resume practices and it's not going to be a detriment to our community or our school, then I certainly support that. But I do think our community matters. I think every person in our community matters. I think what we do, how we act impacts every person in our community. I don't want to take that And I do agree, some people's connections to school is sports. It was mine.
Yeah.
That's still mine. It's still a lot of kids. But that doesn't change my responsibility as a leader to do what it is that is in the best interest of everyone with the information that I have. So what I'm learning is that the thresholds and metrics in some places are different than they are in other places. And that's fine. I don't know whether theirs are right or ours are right. But I agree with Paul. We have a plan. We are doing our best as administrators to administer that plan. And I think that's what you all want from us, and I think that's what the community wants from us, is a plan, and a follow it, and a predictable outcome. Consistent, predictable outcome. And that's very difficult to do that this time of year. So, Matt, to answer your question, I'm in total favor of returning as long as it is safe to do so. And I think it is our duty and our responsibility to communicate why it is safe now. And it was not safe a few weeks ago when we told everybody to go home from school.
Thank you.
That was a predictive, or a precautionary measure that was put in place. What I can't remember from those conversations. That's more precautionary around the Thanksgiving holiday. And now we're talking about taking a risk. I just want to make sure that the new thresholds will be challenged at a different time to push more risky, unpredictable behavior.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so what, two things. When we come back January 4th, I don't think that Dr. Mayer made it very clear to us after discussion. We emailed back 100 times over the weekend.
101.
What are we doing in seat January 4th? Are we 4 days a week? What, are we A/B block? What was actually decided?
It
So
wasn't, it was.
it
was
seems like
Return to
it's
Learn
still in
committee
the
that
air.
would- Yeah.
And that's my understanding. So I'm going to take that and I'm going to feed off Ian here and go back to the numbers. If the Returning to Learn committee is going to come up and we're going to start using district numbers, what is that graph going to look like? What are those numbers? What's going to classify as being in seat, not in seat? I think we need to know what that number is and then make that decision before December 18th. And if that number is whatever that is, then we say that sports and all activities, and I say all activities, are allowed to take place. Now, that's because it's Christmas break, so we suspend everything per the plan until the break hits. But we need to know what those numbers are. Also, feeding off of that, knowing what those numbers are for January 4th to find out, are we in seat for 4 days a week and off on our Wednesdays, if that's what we've kind of discussed a few times. I need decisions. I need leadership to take that, and I need somebody to tell us what those are so we can follow the plan and we as a board know what's going on.
Well put.
My understanding, my understanding was that coming back in January would be, okay, well, so, yeah, according to these numbers. I didn't take it that, my understanding was that, yeah, numbers might change that correlate with different phases, but the phases would still be the phases. So,
That's right.
So we would still be having, what we typically do on Wednesdays, like that wouldn't change. And if that does, if anybody else has heard anything else about that, then,
I thought I had saw where we were gonna return under phase 3.
But how do you decide that if the numbers are?
We don't know what the
It would
number
have
is.
to
We don't have anything, I mean, the Return to Learn committee they're supposed to meet Wednesday, Thursday, and that's been
Tomorrow.
changed now. It's been changed to Monday,
No,
I
I
guess.
moved it to Monday because we have limbo of plan currently.
And-
Deciding what happens tonight actually would affect how or what needs to be in the plan. Looking at the numbers that I've asked Jim to do, the reason we asked Jim to do the numbers is he's the director of data for the district. He gets paid to look at those numbers and deliver reports to us on those numbers.
Yeah, it's just,
So
it's a
I asked
sucky
Travis
job.
to help him with those numbers because Travis is very
Yeah.
concerned with the numbers and he's
Yeah.
good with them. And he's on the committee. So it only made sense to ask numerical experts to come up with numbers. yeah, we're gonna have to assign some values to something. Because I believe we are data-driven as a group, and I believe we want to be able to give our community stability to look at, like Ms. Brown and everyone else has said. Phase 2 looks like this, phase 1 looks like this, and that way everybody can see the thresholds, and somebody doesn't go back and say, well, you just arbitrarily decided to be in phase 2 because it worked for you this month. I think that's what's happening. In fact, I know that's what's happening in other districts. They're saying we're in seat until we decide to come out of seat. You know, we're trying to base things on science and make it to where everybody sees it across the road. Doesn't matter where you are, you can pull the same handful of numbers, you can put the equation in, and you come up with the same answer every time. And as long as you come up with the right answer, right, teachers, everyone else, so.
Why
But,
not? There's one school in our district that's not putting any numbers out at all, which is convenient. I mean,
In our
that's
county, you
convenient.
mean?
No, in our district.
in our conference or?
In our
district?
conference,
Yeah.
Like-
And they have the highest numbers in the conference.
Most, yeah.
And that's why they don't put any numbers out, because if I had to show you what I was actually basing our reasoning on, then there is no reason for us to be here.
Yeah.
And they are arbitrarily just going at it. I think we have looked at our community and what's safest and best for our community and the way to be consistent in our community. You know, I thought the number system was great. I'm a number guy. We hit a threshold, we change. You know, I think now we're almost getting to an arbitrary situation with our numbers. And so we had to come up with a way to make our numbers work. Not necessarily our numbers work, but a formula that works with the numbers and actually takes into account the other parts of it. You know, we've got to come up with a way to have a formula,
Yeah.
you know, some kind of way. And, you know, Travis and I talked briefly when I knelt down and chatted with him over there, and he said, well, I don't know what we'll assign to this or that. You know, it's going to get to be somewhat arbitrary as long as we assign a number. But if we assign some numbers, I think we have to go back and look at our past things. What do our numbers look like in October? Well, we were in this phase. So I think we have to kind of marry the two things together to make sure that we have something that actually is following along kind of where we've been, but actually reflects some kind of guidance for us to be going forward.
Right.
Because we don't want to say every month, well, hey, we're at the board meeting, you guys voting to keep us in the next 30 days, or you're going to let us
Right.
out again?
No, I don't
You're
agree
gonna
with
That's
that.
not it.
You guys are going to meet again on Monday?
We're going
Which
to
is
meet
the
again on
14th.
Monday, yes.
I'm going, I am reluctant to overrule the guidance that I'm receiving from our administrators at this point in time. That's what we pay them to do. That's what we ask them to do. And I don't know how they can do their job if we keep overruling them frequently. Well, I just
So-
think it's not a good idea.
So do you think, do you agree with them to be able to have the Christmas break, or are you saying that you want them to be out until January 4th? And I'm asking because
Yeah.
what I would propose, the 18th, when the break starts, is next Friday, and if the return to learn doesn't meet until the 14th, are they going to be able to have the new information put in place with the numbers, and then, and you know, like on the 16th, be able to have, you know,
They're going
the
to be,
numbers to be able to make that
Aren't-
call,
Aren't,
they're going to meet on the 14th,
which is Monday.
and we're going to meet on the 15th.
Yes.
They can get information to us by then. I
yeah,
would-
but the
I
whole
would
plan,
I've got the floor. I would prefer not to overrule our administrators at this point in time.
our whole return to learn plan needs to be done by the 15th, right? Or we're going to have another board meeting over the holiday. I mean, come on.
Depends on what, you know.
We know there are going to be changes because they're changing the numbers. So we've stated as a board that
Right.
the plan cannot be changed without our approval. So it's either going to have to be ready by Tuesday.
Without our feedback.
Okay, so we're going to do that without discussion?
We don't vote-
necess-
we don't
not
vote
as a
on it.
group,
We don't
have
vote on
to.
it.
Okay,
Okay,
no, hold on,
okay.
we can come back to that, yeah.
I just want to let you all know, we do have a board, I'm sorry, not a board meeting, an admin meeting tomorrow afternoon. So if there's some specific things that you would like to guide us to have a collaboration with our admin team tomorrow, whether that be some suggestions on what those numbers might look like to take the return to learning.
They don't have them done yet.
Want to hear from the admin team, or they're.
It sounds like Mr. Jakes already kind of has that being coordinated.
Yeah.
And that's fine, but we do meet tomorrow, so we can discuss anything that you all would
Cool.
like to do. And in regards to returning in January, I would like to remind you that we still have about 300 students who are 100% distance learning, and our teachers will still be involved in that. And so that support and intervention is part of their success, and that has to happen on Wednesdays, because we can't pull them in when students are
Nobody said
in.
anything
So
about Wednesday.
it is, I feel that it is very important for our teachers to still have Wednesdays to choice because of whatever their family.
That should be an
I
that should be
think
an
we were just
administrative
tossing that out as
decision.
like a random example. Wasn't that kind of like an example?
Yeah,
of
that was
like-
something that was discussed about being in seat 4, but Wednesday was the day for them to be off. So that was,
That is a distance learning day.
Yes, that's
For
correct.
support
Yes,
our
yes.
distance learners as well, and then our students and teachers are distance learners.
Yeah, we're not coming for your Wednesdays.
Yeah,
you're
no, no,
good.
no, no.
You're straight. No, that's fine.
Did they move? Did they move chicken patties to another day?
Come on now.
I'm just.
That is not on the
looking out for the
agenda.
kids. I'm looking out for the kids on that one.
Come on now. All right, so,
Tonight, we're here to just to see if we're gonna
yeah.
give guidance to do the extracurricular and the activities, correct?
It's-
Practice, and then that's what we're
Right.
supposed to be.
By the way,
Yep,
an open practice up there.
And so it
basically.
sounds like
You got
what we're
my
hearing
support.
is, if it's safe to do so, by golly,
Do it.
let's do it. And so then the question becomes, what is, and in fact, in my little board meeting prep notes, my first question is, can we do it safely? What does safely mean? So, sounds like we're going to be coming up with some thresholds.
Well, our coaches have plans in place.
They have plans for
They
that.
know they're gonna do this,
But-
this, and this. Let's let the kids back into school and let them practice.
According to whatever phase we end up coming into, we'll be, following those whenever we get back in.
We're failing those kids.
Yes,
We're
we will.
failing those athletes. They're,
Was that a motion, Ed?
Right.
but it's not an
It's an action item.
it's not an action
it's not
item.
an action
Oh, it's not?
No.
But I
No.
give my
You're missing your
thumbs
dinner
up.
for a conversation.
No, there's no action item.
Oh,
Adoption,
it's the
yeah.
top and the bottom, I'm sorry.
Yep. No, there's no action on this.
We are absolutely failing our kids. I think we have people, we have seniors especially that we're looking for this season to offer them opportunity to obtain a scholarship, and we have drug our feet, and now we're going to drag them for another week. That's simply the feedback that I've gotten from the families that have reached out, and
Well,
it's sad. It's sad.
your solution then is to let them start practicing immediately?
Yes. That our winter coaches are no more different than our fall people. And we know more now than we did then, and they did a great job of keeping our kids safe. And if kids don't feel safe, then we're giving them an opportunity to opt out. These kids, that their life depends on this, Harry. You just said it for yourself. They depend on it. And we owe it to those kids to give them that opportunity.
Our teams are also greatly smaller
Yeah.
than, we don't have anything like a football team, soccer team. Those teams are exponentially smaller than they would have been for fall teams for the most part, correct?
We don't all practice together yet.
And that was what was in the plan as well from the coaches, was to have separate practices, not combined practices as well.
How many kids do we have out for wrestling? I saw he's going to split them by weights.
It's shrunk, a little bit. I want to say he has 30 boys and 12 girls.
I was gonna say around 40, 35 to 40 is what
Harry,
I'm hearing from
we
you.
have a girl that
Good.
should win state.
Really?
And she's a senior, and she's
And
missing out
there's-
on every opportunity.
And they had divided,
It's
he had
terrible.
divided practices down to lightweights, I believe.
Yeah, he's
female
got
wrestlers. and
He's
then
splitting
we
them at
had-
38. I thought he was a little low place
Well,
to
and
be
he said
splitting them,
that
but
he bought masks for
But that
them
would
to
be
wear
by
in
his-
practice, right?
he's probably done that by numbers.
But let me,
According to their plan, they changed that.
Oh, okay.
They will only wear masks when it's mandated by the county, just because of the safety aspect.
Yeah.
None
Which-
of my coaches feel that it's safe to play in
I
masks.
was just say, let me be the voice of the coach who feels it's unsafe. I mean, why do I want to look my students in the eye and say no to practice? If I'm doing that, and I've been in this coaching position, I mean, how experienced are some of these coaches? Years? Maybe even a decade. Years. These are the students, these are the children I want to see succeed in this sport. Why would I tell them no? It must be because, like Ian is suggesting, I feel the weight of the health of the community on me. And there's something that we got to respect in that, while asking them, okay, but then what would it take for us to go ahead and make this possible? For us to have students, to have those opportunities that they feel so passionately about as well. We've got two pretty equal sides here, right? You got people on the one side who don't want to be responsible for contributing to a rise in numbers, potentially deaths. I would feel that weight on my shoulders if I were a coach. But on the other hand, you got the students and their families, some of whom live for this stuff.
And some coaches.
And some coaches too, of course. So I'm just like
Absolutely.
the
Yeah.
the
Some of these
devil's advocate.
coaches are only in teaching because they get to coach.
Sure, yeah, I'm just the devil's advocate coach over here,
Right.
who's the not.
And now you're going to make me sound like a politician, because I'm going to be talking on both sides of the issue. If I were a coach, I would want
It's
to
terrible.
have my kids right now,
Yep.
so I could be developing them for the future. And, you know, that for every week of practice, you know, when I coached for a long time, every week of practice, you miss, you're that much behind the other people who are practicing.
And here's the thing, you can't tell me that the people who put these plans together, which are the existing protocols, I mean, like you said, Mr. Reed, it's essentially what we're already doing, what you're already doing, that they don't feel that weight themselves, right? I mean, we are just playing out the drama here that you guys have been living this whole time, right? So,
Can we go?
So what is it they want for the board tonight? I mean,
Sure.
we're here to decide yes or no they can practice or not.
no,
I
not
know, I don't think
necessarily.
we got that, no, that would be an
So our
action
thumbs are
item.
up.
The request
or
came to
down.
me to talk about it, here we are, yeah.
There was a case, right before the shutdown, of one of the teams who neglected to report a positive case, and I found out days later from another teacher.
Oh, that's right.
And so there needs to be stipulations put in place for consequences of not following through these protocols or telling your athletes not to get tested if they have symptoms and that kind of stuff.
Whoa.
That has not happened, but I know that it happens at other schools, so I know that it's possible anywhere.
That would be great.
Also, I want you guys to take into consideration that we might not have bus drivers to drive in the games.
That's, yeah.
Craig can speak to that fact. Yesterday at our coaches meeting, he asked them point blank, can you guarantee that these kids are gonna follow these protocols? And none of them could guarantee it.
That's bad.
So that's the community risk that we're talking about.
Yeah, and you know what, I hate it, but I mean, I can go get the video, it's already been proven back.
Yeah.
And this is the type of stuff, but if I bring it up, or my driver brings it up, then we're the bad guy.
Right.
And that's not it.
No.
We gotta worry about getting kids to and from safely. We don't have time to walk back and forth. And I ask one generic question, one blanket question. Can you guarantee that everybody keep a mask on? We have to crack the windows and all that, and the room went silent.
Wow.
Nobody wants to take their responsibility.
Wow.
I don't wanna make none of my drivers sick. It's not working.
No.
It's
So then
not
have a
working.
waiver, I mean, we're not talking about having sports before January 4th, right?
And-
Is it gonna be the same come January 4th?
Question on your part of it too, I'm not for sure, but I can ask Derek, I'll call Derek tomorrow. But I think there is something through Desi that if we go to a school activity, that they have to be taken there by bus.
I don't think so.
I thought so.
I don't think so.
I'm just saying,
He said
We,
we
we,
have to
we
look at
we
that.
could, we could get kids to events through the administration would have to send a waiver. A lot of times when I had tennis matches all over the place, I would have a waiver. And the parents would come in and get permission and take responsibility, liability. Then they could take the kids to the match, especially when we had conflicts between just music and tennis or music and golf. And I know you've been through those, Kristen. I don't know how you could not be through them with the kids we have.
We already covered that. We already said, and I think you did, Christian, if you do this, this happens. We just got to hold your feet to the fire. You know, and
We don't
give them
have any
consequences.
stipulations in
Then do it.
We need to put
Needs to
them.
be.
So how
And
would that,
needs to be really
how could we
strict
How could we
deal.
get those? Would that be a matter of looking at what other districts have done, implementing that into the plan? What do you think?
It would be input from what other ADs are doing as well as from the
I think we
middle
need to
school
do
and
that.
high school.
I think, would there be any problem with having that?
I don't know why that's even a discussion here. That's a building level directorship
Yeah.
that they need to do at their buildings and
You're
hold
certainly
their
not-
employees accountable. I don't think that's a board
Well, they're
discussion.
asking for guidance.
For the plan, so I don't think you're going to get any pushback from the board about asking for that to
Good.
be included in the plan. And if you do encounter any pushback about it, please let me know. Yes, ma'am.
I would just say that that is great, and thank you very much for that, but then supporting us when a decision has to be made,
Yeah.
and we have to shut
Sure.
things down because a coach or a
Yep.
sponsor
Yep.
doesn't follow the rules.
Yeah.
100% agree.
Well,
exactly.
It's gonna come to you and say, oh my gosh,
Uh-huh.
Howard Robbins shut us down, well, there's a reason,
Yep.
Yeah.
and you
Yep.
didn't follow.
Yep.
So
Yep.
that support, we need to know we have
Yep.
that support as well.
Well,
100%.
100%. Craig, do you have a plan come January 4th for your drivers?
Yeah, I do.
So we're not talking about anybody participating before January 4th, right? We're just talking about practice.
Are you asking a question as far as long-distance trips, or are you talking about just regular busing?
No, I'm talking about his athletic trips.
If
Okay.
we're gonna do long distance trips, January 4th, I'm gonna spend about 15,500. Every building we put air purifiers in. They have, and I've been researching, and God knows I'll have to have my few mechanics, what over this break, which they always do. But we will put air purifiers in every bus if we have to. But we still gotta have the support of you
Yeah.
guys. Just like we've been, like I have said, if I have a coach,
Not holding up their end of the
I
bargain?
know what they're gonna do.
Yep.
You know what, we look like the bad person. I always
Well-
look like the bad person whenever I come. And I say, well, Joe Blow back here, we had 7 kids that didn't have masks on.
Come on
I
now.
appreciate all my, I'm running on a skeleton crew right now.
Sure.
If one driver gets sick and makes everybody else sick out there, we have them. If I lose one, I don't know what I do. I mean, it's a tight knit group that I have, and I wanna support them and take care of them.
I also don't want to, I don't want to hold, I mean, if we have an isolated event, an isolated team versus 50 trips and 1 incident, then I don't think that we slap the hands of all those kids that were doing it right. So I think a plan to hold people accountable, knowing in your parent meetings that you discuss this with your parents, this is what we're going to do. This is what will happen. If you do not do this, you will be out and we won't take you and you will be responsible. I mean, whatever you need to do, Kristen, to lead them, Craig, working together, whatever.
Like just part of your normal participation. too.
Yes,
It is an
yes.
expectation of being part of this team that you do X, Y, Z.
And do
like
not
everything
call,
else.
do not call a board member upset
Please.
because
No.
you broke a rule. Do not do it.
But Craig, what is the price
Or
of
do
those
it and find
purifiers by
out.
bus? Just curious.
In the same breath with that, don't you, you know, if you say so, our kid does it, we're going to give, what about the coach?
Yeah.
That's where I
Absolutely.
was
That's
getting
what we're
ready to
saying.
go. I was
Yep.
getting ready to say
That's
that
what we're saying,
coaches
like,
need to be held
absolutely.
accountable, but you're also gonna have that coach that, oh, I really can't bench that kid. Put your mask up, so I don't have to say, that's not okay either. They have to be role models, they have to be coaches, they have to be leaders, and they need to be reprimanded when things happen
And
by their
supported when things go
supervisor
well.
too.
And that goes back to what Kristen had kind of said too, on that, or Callie, I believe, sorry.
Well, one of them made the comment that, you know, we couldn't police the bus at night.
That's his job.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a, yeah, that's his job.
You had a coach say,
I don't think
that's,
this is appropriate for this setting.
that's the coach's job.
So,
Craig-
so how much do air purifiers cost?
$500 a year.
$5,000 a year?
Are those the kind that plug in, they just plug in a serial ladder?
We have to actually fit those in.
Wow.
Do we have
Didn't
dedicated
we already do that?
activity buses anymore?
We do that.
Okay.
So,
Plus,
I'm-
my activity buses, you know, I order them without cameras, but just to protect my drivers, I put cameras and they have night vision on them, so
Yeah.
a coach can't say, well, I didn't, you know, or I did this. It's all recorded 24/7.
it sounds like your fleet of transportation buses, we definitely need to put purifiers on. Whether we go this week, next month, or 2 months from now, this isn't gonna go away or change. So we probably need to look at doing that for sure, and ordering those and getting a budget line in for whatever, an approval, if we have to vote, or if it's just in your budget, you got enough money still.
You know what, Craig, your drivers shouldn't be looked at as the villains. Overall, if a kid does that, even the coach should praise the bus drivers. We want to keep everybody safe. And if you're the coach and you let that one kid not do what he's supposed to do, he's jeopardizing everybody, including the bus driver. So I don't look at your bus drivers as villains for reporting it. Actually, it's your duty to report that to the administrators and let them handle it. Joe Schmoes, this kid right here did it. You're done, dude. Off the bus. You're not going again. There's got to be specific consequences in that. well, it won't happen again. You're right, because you're not playing tonight. You know what I'm saying? But I don't see, everybody has to work together. The kids, if they see it, they need to be reported. The coaches, the drivers, I mean, all of us, you're all in that same boat. I mean, you're all going to sink if you get a hole in it. So I'm telling you, it's got to be a team effort from the bus drivers to the kids to the coaches. It all has to work.
So this is clear as mud, so we can't leave these people that have.
Well, I was just going to say, yeah, so
What do we
where are
do?
Yeah. So where are we at then? Where are we going to go
I
with
thought this
this?
was gonna be an action item.
I did too.
When I requested the meeting, I didn't realize that
I
we weren't
suppose we
gonna
could
vote on
make it
by
an
talking
action
about it.
item, but I don't.
Because, so that's my bad for maybe not pushing that. And then I saw the agenda, didn't even
I didn't notice
dawn
it
on
either.
me to look at it, to see if there's an action item on the side, so.
But I'll publicly say you got my support to go back and start practices
Yeah,
immediately.
I mean, and I know that it's a matter of, do we feel safe doing it? We've heard from you. You don't feel safe yet to do so. Okay. But we can't put it off too much longer. We're going to have to assess where we are as a district pretty quickly.
I think we need to get
Monday, the 14th, and then,
And let's
And
get
then
it
the
turned
15th.
around. Yeah, and we don't need to wait for, well, yeah, the 14th, and then the next day is the board meeting. I was gonna say we don't need to
put it
wait
on
for
the
us.
agenda.
Well, sure. We'd be getting updates about the R2L anyway. Does that seem like a reasonable timeline? Getting the thresholds together about the phases so that folks have a new sense of what is safe?
I think having it all, or at least tentatively, in front of us, gives us a kind of a better idea of what we're looking at.
Yeah.
I mean, if we come to you, and, I mean, if we come out and we say, well, our number's gonna be 200, I mean, that's not gonna, people are gonna freak out about that. I mean, it has to be reasonable, and it has to be close to what we're gonna use. I mean, we can't keep changing it, I guess.
When,
Just to
Travis,
suit,
you're
so.
here. I mean, what are you and Jim, what are your plans? What are you guys, what's your timeline?
We're meeting tomorrow.
So you think that you will have a number tomorrow?
That would be a assumption that I have no clue about.
Okay, I don't have your brain, and I know that you're a numbers guy, so.
It was brought up to me yesterday, and we scheduled a meeting for tomorrow.
Okay.
And that'll be the first chance we've had to meet, and I haven't spoken anything with Jim besides setting up the meeting, so I don't have any idea what his thought process is gonna be, what direction he's been given, what timeline he's working with. So I wish I had a better answer for you, but I'll find out tomorrow, I
Well,
guess.
the reason I asked that is because they're coming up with a plan and a number for January 4th. They're not coming up with a plan and a number for today, because we've already said, and we've drawn the line in the sand, that school's distant until January 4th. So their plan for their number,
No, but they're coming up with phases that we could implement, regardless of whether we're coming back on January 4th or whatever.
that's not what we've stated until now, though.
I-
That return to learn plan, that's my understanding from being on the committee, that those new numbers and that new chart will be what we follow starting January 4th. And those phases that they're coming up with is what we will start school with on January 4th.
I think I see what you mean, but why,
So-
and we've
But I would-
already, we've
yeah.
made that plan for January 4th, and I think it's a good thing to stick to it just for the sake
Sure.
of consistency. But what if we have these new phases, and what if these new phases mean that for activities and athletics, things could get moving more quickly? And that doesn't affect every family in the district, and it could advantage some who are eager to get back. So why couldn't we just use the new phases to help us gauge what we're going to do right in the here and now with athletics and activities?
I love it.
Yeah,
I love it. I just,
I mean, that's.
I hope that everyone understands that.
Yeah, the communication probably wasn't very clear on last week, so I can understand that completely. But in my vision, I would have expected a number before January 4th because we didn't know how many seats were taken or how we were going to have that structured. So a number should have been, we should have thought that that should be present, you know, a week
Well, I
or
mean,
so before.
that's what we would have used in the next 3 weeks to decide how we come
Right.
back to sleep.
Yeah.
But maybe that has, I mean,
I say let's, honestly, we need to have some information on the 14th completed for the 15th, hoping that Jim and Travis will be able to see what they come up with tomorrow on their brainstorming of getting things started.
It's all up to Travis.
And just follow up, just have if you could just email us and let
No
us know
pressure, Travis.
how
It's
well
just all
that
up to
meeting
you
went
now.
and what
I'll be waiting for
what
it
you
at
guys
8
are
o'clock on
predicting.
Thursday.
It's all up to you now, Travis.
well, I mean, I think that's,
Make
I
my
mean, that's
job
only
easy.
respectful of us that, to understand that they're trying to still teach.
Right.
And now they're meeting on top of it to do this numbers. I can't imagine that they'll come to an agreement tomorrow on what this really should look like. Now, I know they're both very smart, and maybe they already have it figured out, but
I mean, just a follow-up to let us know what kind of timeline we're looking at. I mean, if we don't have if they don't have it, you know, I just think we just need a follow-up from their meeting would be helpful. That's
so
it.
is the return to learn committee going to immediately and no matter what accept their number?
Say that again, I'm sorry.
Is the return to learn committee going, I mean, are they going to accept that number no matter what? What'd you say?
No, I was gonna say, nothing's a definite in this world ever, you know?
That's my point.
Especially
That's
the
my point. We don't
R2L
meet till the
plan.
14th.
Yeah. But what would happen, hopefully,
need some.
in theory, is that Monday there would be some information that we could discuss. There would be some information to bring back here for you on Tuesday. And hopefully there could be somewhat of a more solid plan than this chaos.
Yeah, of course,
that
then
is
we got the
somewhat
following
reigning now.
Tuesday and the following Tuesday and the following Tuesday. I just can't get away from you guys.
No, I don't want to do that, which is
Yeah.
why I'm asking.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
And
really do
yes.
need to have this
gotta
ironed
be
out
clear.
and clear, because this gray area is very hard for everyone to work in. And, I can imagine what it's sitting like on that side of the table. So,
Okay, so my support is that we let the kids return to athletics tomorrow. I'm done.
Me too.
I would support that decision as well. But it is not an action item.
No, none of
I
that.
just, we're supposed to put our presence out there, so I
Yes.
did it.
That's all.
Okay. So Brian agrees with tomorrow, Ed agrees with tomorrow, I agree with tomorrow.
I like this idea of coming up with threshold numbers. It's what our administrators are telling us that they want. They want our support in that. Not the threshold numbers. They
just
want to
gonna
be
vote for
supported in
things
making
every
these
time.
decisions in their, in ways where they feel like they've got some structure, right, and support. Yeah, okay.
Just because the middle school is on a way different level than the high school, we will do our best to recoup the fundamentals that they have missed, whether that's trying to find more games or maybe have intramurals of some sort. It just isn't the same as what
Nope.
they're doing.
It's
No.
not.
We understand that.
We
It's
understand.
different.
100%.
We'll do our best to get them what they need to get those fundamental skills, so that way they're not missing out.
Do I need to rephrase my
Well, I just
position?
want to make sure that we're just.
I agree with you, I agree with you. My position would be, I would agree if the high school wanted to be back in their practices as of tomorrow.
Yeah, if the high school wants to be
If the high
back,
school wants to be back in their practices as of
do
tomorrow,
whatever
I
they want.
100% support
but
that.
if the high school doesn't want to.
Well, we have, it's 6 to 4.
Yeah.
With those,
I think their administration plays a part in this. Ian is their supervisor,
if
ultimately.
it's safe,
If
Yeah,
it's
if it's
safe,
safe.
and so.
Who
No,
decides
and
that?
so, well, here's the deal. You've
Those
got
are the
coaches
threshold
saying one
numbers.
thing and some of them, and I don't know that, this goes back to, how do you ask the teachers to have a conversation about their supervisor? So at the same time, this is the same thing. That is basically the coaches coming to the board wanting us to override their supervisor. Is that proper?
Don't like it.
So
Yeah,
if we're leaving it up to
the coaches.
the high school, it's not the coach's decision, it's the administration, it's their supervisor's decision.
Yeah.
That's how I place it. That's like,
Yeah.
in any position, you don't override your boss.
no, of course not. All I'm saying is, my position is I would support them if they wanted to do that tomorrow.
I like that way.
Okay.
I would support them if that was the decision they made tomorrow.
Thumbs up.
I mean, I would support that, if that's the decision they make.
Yeah, I think
Yes.
I think we
Absolutely.
have finally reached a point of saying,
Let's go.
okay, here we are. We are at the place where we began. All right, let's move on to this last item of the agenda.
I have no idea where we stand.
Okay, let's talk about okay, I've got this listed here as future meeting to discuss curriculum and MPS distance. I just wanted to make sure that we did not lose track of the fact that we had said we wanted to talk about curriculum, because as you may recall from last Friday's meeting, one thing that I had said was that it seems like we've got a couple of different conversations going on here, right? We've got the conversation about what's going on with the plan, which was the focus of the Friday meeting, and what's going on with distance curriculum. And I think we were all generally agreed that we needed to have some time to discuss distance curriculum. So my two questions are, when do we want to have that conversation? Do we want to have that conversation, for example, at the next regular meeting? Do we want to have another separate meeting for it? I would like to know. And secondly, what would we like to know so that people who need to get us information about those issues can start gathering it? And that's not to say that we aren't going to add to it later, but there we
Do
go.
we need to do that as an entire board, or can we have a few folks that meet with Diane so that we don't have to call a meeting and make it a public meeting for
Yes.
however long, so that we can actually get our questions answered? It can be more of a conversational.
That's a
type of
good
thing.
idea,
And we
because
can
that way
versus
things
going
could be
this way.
discussed
Right.
that we've heard.
I think as long as it comes back as a report of some kind
don't
to the
know.
public,
Right.
since we've said that
That's
we
why I
want to
said
talk
we
about
could
it.
appoint person
You
and
agree
make
with
it
that,
a
Diane?
Curriculum committee, or such as we have to charge everything with the board by making it a true committee charged by the board, so that you have reports and it comes back, then yeah, I think that we can do it that way.
I would appreciate, I like Dr. Meyer's suggestion of knowing exactly what it is you all want to know, so that
And we'll
Yeah.
definitely talk about that
we're
still.
all set on you going to the representative, whoever that would be.
I'd like to be on that
you
committee.
all,
Can Aaron and Harry, can
I would
you
suggest
guys-
two,
can you-
I would suggest two.
I want to be on that
Can
committee.
Aaron and Harry, I mean, does anybody else have a problem? Do you have time, Aaron?
Wait a second.
Aaron has
Oh, I'm
lots
gonna,
of
I'm gonna
time.
catch my breath in
Okay,
a second.
are you
Yes.
and Harry willing to be part of, run that committee? If that's the case, then I think we're done.
Then there will be a committee that will meet with you, Diane, and we will funnel everything through them, for the most part.
About the information that committee would like to have prior to the meeting.
Yeah, that's what we're gonna talk about right now, before everybody
They're
scoots
just gonna
out.
come to your office and ask for you to lay it down.
And I don't know, there's one, I also, there's
Okay, so we got it. Okay, what do we wanna know? What are some of the things that you guys want me and Harry to find out about?
Oh, can we email that to you?
Yeah, why don't you do that?
Yes.
Because the list would be pretty long, and I
If we're
actually
gonna
need to make
name it
sure
all
I
out
get
right
it.
now,
You
we
can
might as well
send it-
just ask her.
You can send it to me,
Well, I
'cause
mean, I guess so, but I also know that, you know, some things get lost in email, right? Like some things don't translate very
especially
well.
with my, did Keeper leave? I gotta
Misunderstandings.
get on the
And
MHS
I also know that, just like Alan said, we don't get to talk as a group all the time. So that's why I'm putting it on the agenda, because it gets to kill a billion birds with one agenda item for me. I get to actually look at you guys and say, hey, what's up with this? And so, for example, in just, 3 minutes, we've now moved this from being a whole extra meeting to just me and Harry.
Oh, thank you.
I know.
No, I volunteered for
No,
this
it's
one.
funny. Yeah,
I
yeah,
want to get involved in this.
And that was much more quick than a
I don't
billion
know.
emails. Go for it.
I don't know that I have I don't know, I have a lot of thoughts.
Yeah.
Uh,
I mean, I have an hour's worth of thoughts.
About curriculum?
Yeah.
Send some to me.
Perfect.
All right, call,
That's my point. I don't want to sit here and, I don't
That's
know.
what I was saying, yeah,
Well,
there's a lot of things.
but I feel exactly the opposite, right? Like via email, it's gonna be like, I'm gonna have, and then I'm gonna.
Harry said he was on break
I've already-
all kind of time, talk to him.
Ain't that the
I've
truth?
already got them. I mean,
Okay.
I've already got it.
All right, send everything to
full of
Harry.
them.
He's the point person, and then we'll go from there.
Perfect.
And we'll funnel those to Diane before we have any sort of meeting about that.
Is Dr. Meyer, is this something you would like to have done prior to the holiday break, or is this something that you would be looking to schedule after?
It depends on how quickly these folks get their thoughts to Harry/me. So,
And send it to my
Moval.
Boval email. Keeper hasn't got me set up with the MHS Owls thing yet, which is partially my fault.
I hope it. I make a motion that we adjourn.
But every time I grab a.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you for your time in the crowd tonight.
Somebody unplug that machine so I don't get caught saying bad things.